Hi,
Alrighty, guys.
everyone. Welcome to today's Career Chat. I'm Krista Harmon, a workforce development consultant with the Kent ISD, and I'm so happy to welcome Matt Musch with us today. He's a master electrician. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So yeah, like Krista said, my name is Matthew Mush. I am 28 years old and I am a master electrician in both the states of Michigan and Colorado. So I have been in the electrical field for 9 years as of June. So going on a decade now, which time flies, you guys. I know you guys are all young and in high school, but just fasten your seatbelts. It goes quick. But it's been great. So the way that it works for me is when I was your guys' age, and I don't know, I saw 7th to 12th grade. You're always maybe not in 7th and 8th grade as much. You're starting to think about it, but definitely in high school, you're like, okay, what am I going to do when this is all done? And how am I going to make money doing it? And so there's a million answers to that question. And I guess when I was your guys' age, I'm just thinking, oh, I want to be a doctor because a doctor is a noble profession and they make a lot of money and all those kinds of things. And I thought about, accounting, actuary, sciences, those type of things. And then I was also very good at science. So I'm like, marine biology sounded cool. And the world's your oyster, so you're always thinking of everything. Now, never once did I say I'm going to be an electrician. I mean, to me, until I even started in this field, an electrician was a guy who changed light bulbs. We do a whole lot more than that. But that is what my mental perception of an electrician was at that time. If you told me even as late as senior in high school that I was going to be an electrician, I would have been like, okay, yeah. But it is a very lucrative career and there's lots of opportunities in it. So I guess without further ado, I'll get started on how that all works. The way it worked for me is I kind of got lucky. So I graduated high school when I was 17. I was pretty young for my grade, and I didn't really have a concrete idea of like, okay, where am I going with this? So my thought was, okay, I'm going to enroll in community college, start taking gen eds, and hopefully, something will bloom into fruition from there. And after my first semester of community college, my best friend, who was still in high school, he was a grade behind me, he told me, he's like, hey, as soon as I graduate, I'm moving to Colorado, from Holland, Michigan originally, and that's where I live now. And he goes, yeah, I'm moving to Colorado and I'm going to go be an electrician for my uncle. And I was like, not without me. So for me, the appeal was okay. This is a career that has a low barrier of entry. It seems like there's a lot of opportunity. I am very much an energetic and move around type person. So hey, I'm going to be on a job site. I'm going to be working with my hands, and I'm get to build things and create and I just contribute to something. That felt really like a good idea for me and seemed like it fit the bill for what I was wanting out of a career. And so we went with it. And yeah, at the ripe age of 18, me and my buddy moved halfway across the country and got ourselves a one-bedroom apartment and went to work.
Did you
And
start? Did you start with an apprenticeship, or did you just start working with his uncle right away, like kind of an
I,
8 to 5 kind of job?
yeah, so I started with an apprenticeship. So the company that I started with is the company I work for now, called Excel Electric Inc., founded in Granville, Michigan in 1984. And then I believe 2008 or 2009, we opened a branch in Colorado. And so my friend, his uncle was that branch manager in Colorado. So yes, kind of had an in there, which is definitely helpful, but not necessary. So the way that worked is basically I started June 1st, 2015. So this would have been Thanksgiving 2014. Basically, his uncle was in town to visit family for Thanksgiving, and we did our interview there. And it wasn't much of an interview. It was, when can you start? And since my friend was in high school, we were like, well, he graduates May 21st, so we'll be there. We'll start work June 1. Gives us 10 days to move out there, get settled, enjoy beautiful Colorado, which it is beautiful, very busy anymore, but still beautiful, and get to work. So the way
Quick
that
question
worked,
though. Quick
yes,
question. At Thanksgiving, because you had kind of were thinking you were going to college and you hadn't
yeah.
figured it quite out yet. Were your parents like familiar with skilled trades? Were they supportive? What kind of feedback did you get from people in your life?
So my parents were very supportive. They knew. I will say, I mean, not arrogant, but I consider myself a fairly bright person, but school did not suit me well. I mean, I can tell you right now, I think I got a 32 on my ACT, but I had a 1.2 GPA because it just didn't suit me. I'm not saying that that's something to strive for or anything like that, but that was just my reality. So, my mom always pushed for college. She's like, she wants the best for me. But once I kind of brought this up, and my parents kind of looked at each other, and they were just mad that I was moving to Colorado more than anything else. They're like, "You're gonna move that far away?" And I was like, "Yep, bye." So, yeah, I've always been kind of independent. I was eager to get out there, but they were supportive of me. I mean, I still have the letter my mom wrote me, and sent with me, when I moved out. I keep that, and that means a lot to me. So my parents were supportive of that, and that was huge for me. And they let me go, and my dad was like, "Well, if you want to move back anytime, you just let me know." And I was like, "Dad, I think I'm out, but I love you. I'm ready to do my own thing." And so, beyond, the career of an electrician too, I will say there is something to be said about moving out of your comfort zone. And for me, I mean, there was lots of things that brought me to Colorado. I like to snowboard. If you ever heard of Red Rocks, it's a beautiful outdoor music venue. I was a very big fan and still am of live music. Just lots of outdoor, activities in Colorado, mountains and hiking and snowboarding, you name it, you can do it there. And so I felt a very strong pull, and I just felt like for my character and for building myself up as a person, as a young adult, I was like, I think I need this, and I think this will benefit me. So, and my parents, I think agreed with me. So they know better after 18 years than to try and tell me no. So they decided, to be supportive, and that was fantastic. So that was kind of how that started.
That is a big adventure. I mean, when I think of a lot of 18-year-olds, and especially this younger generation, to be able to just leave at that age, that is a big deal. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
want to underestimate that. And I love that you were so focused that you did that. So, and I love that your parents were supportive. How did
it
you
was great to it was
yeah,
great too because I had a buddy. You know what I mean? There's one thing to do that all by yourself, but to move out there with a guy who had been my best friend, most of high school. I mean, we had each other's back. He didn't continue in the trade. He kind of quit after a year, decided it wasn't for him. But that year was long enough for me to say, I'm going to keep going with it though. Just because you decide it's not for you, I haven't made that decision yet, so I'm going to keep going. So yeah, that's a good. So it's always good to have a support system, no matter who it is. It can be family, it can be friends, people that care about you and want to see you succeed is what you need. So, and that can take many forms. So that's important.
what did you remember at that time that really did seem like a good fit for you, Matt? Why did you stick with it, whereas your buddy didn't? What do you remember about that beginning
I just
year?
felt like I that first year, I felt like I was constantly improving. I felt like the people that were kind of my mentors kind of, took me under their wing further and further. And, I could tell that they wanted to see me succeed too. And they saw something in me, and that encouraged me to, keep giving as much effort as possible. And to, and in my mind, I'm looking at this, and the sky really is the limit. I mean, when you start, you're an apprentice, you're on the bottom, and I'll get to explaining how that apprenticeship works in a minute. But you work your way up from an apprentice. Okay, now you can get 4 years of that. Then you can take an exam and become a licensed electrician. They call that a journeyman. 2 more years, you can become a master electrician, and then there's even an electrical contractor license, which is a little bit different. But again, I mean, the world, it's completely up to you. And I tell all of our apprentices, I'm actually our training managers, and I administer the apprenticeship program for our company. I tell these guys, you will get out of it what you put into it, and that is true with many things in life. But I firmly stand by, you reap what you sow, as it said. So I think that's an important sentiment there. And so yeah, like I was reaping what I was sowing in that first year, and I experienced, respect, and I kind of moved up, and I was like, okay, I have some great momentum, things are going well. I like, I like working in this field, and so I'm going to keep doing it. And we did.
Yeah, I think I want to point out to young people watching this is the value of a mentor, and to really seek that out in those early years when you can have adults encouraging you and pouring into you and teaching you. That just helps everyone in those early years. So be paying attention to who you could ask if it's not a natural thing like Matt had the coworkers to be your mentors. Seek somebody out. So go ahead
Yeah,
and
I mean,
keep going. Yeah. So you got this apprenticeship. You're moving along. How was that experience? Those 4 years overall, and
it was good. I mean, everything has its ups and downs. And I mean, there's great things, and there's not. Some days, you come home and you're like, this stinks, or whatever. But generally, overall, it was going very well. Construction, and I mean, I worked in the construction aspect of being an electrician. And I'll talk a little bit more about, the different ways you can be an electrician. But basically, my job was installing electrical systems on new buildings or remodeled buildings. And so if you guys aren't familiar with the trades, it does tend to be a slightly rougher crowd. I mean, in terms of just how people talk to each other, and especially like 10 years ago when I started, how people treat each other. I mean, a lot of that, the negative aspects of that, are significantly, improved in the last 10 years. But, when I say, I mean, not everybody was my friend. I had guys who were, telling me what to do, and they cuss at me and call me names and you name it. And, try to, I don't know, they kind of project their insecurities onto you, which again, that takes, a certain amount of just confidence in yourself to know that, hey, what you're saying isn't necessarily true. Just because you say it doesn't make it true. But you do kind of have to persevere through some of that, like you would with, again, any career. Anything that's worth achieving, you are going to have to persevere through some negative aspects of it. Nothing's the yellow brick road off to the Wizard of Oz. There's ups and downs with everything in life. And so yeah, my advice there would just be persevere. But again, that is not what I want to highlight in this talk. But I mean, it's worth mentioning. So
Well, I think the reality, it's important for career chats to have a reality check, right? It's just
yeah.
so someone goes in with not thinking everything's rosy all the time. So it's not a focus, but yeah, it's important to hear the reality, your experiences for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think as I kept going, the fun thing is I remember pretty specifically is just so much behind the scenes and like stuff you wouldn't normally see as like, so like for instance, I remember we were doing a movie theater. I got to go up where the projectors are, and somewhere you would normally not be able to go in a movie theater. And I'm just like, holy cow, you got these projectors the size of car engines, and they have their own little filtration system to keep air and dust out and keep them cooled. And wow. And then we did like a jewelry store, and like all the lighting. I mean, imagine when you go to a jewelry store, you have all these diamonds and fine metals, and they want to sell them, so they get a bunch of lights. Well, who installs lights? Electricians. So you get to put all these lights together. And I've done a wedding venues, these just we're talking 10-foot chandeliers that weigh 450 pounds with 1,826 crystals that you have to hang all by hand. I mean, just all different stuff you get to see. I mean, stores and schools, and so it's just, you get to see a little bit of all these other careers and all these other businesses and how they operate. But you're not part of that. You just get to see it, and you get to contribute from an electrician's perspective. So that's the kind of things that was fun. You're not, I mean, unless you're a job foreman, you might be on the project for the entirety of the project. You might be there for a month to help out when they need a couple extra guys around. And so, especially as an apprentice, you'll move around a little bit, and you'll go where you're needed. But again, that gives you, exposure to, all different aspects of the trades. And one thing I will say is, I would call the company I work for about a medium-sized company. But we have, in larger companies, the one of the things to watch out for is becoming only good at one aspect of the job. So when you're an electrician in a commercial setting, we run like conduit or pipes that you may see if you ever look somewhere with exposed electrical, where you see switches on metal boxes and pipes going around. So there are some guys who their whole career, all they do is run and bend conduit, or all their career, all they do is pull the wire into the conduit. After the bending, the conduit running crews leave, then the wire pulling guys come in, and so on and so forth. So you don't want to get, I mean, you want to be wary of not getting, kind of bottlenecked doing one specific task, because as an electrician, again, there is a myriad of skills necessary to be what I would consider a well-rounded, qualified electrician. So that was one thing that I appreciated about the company that I was at. And so that takes some discernment when you're looking around to say, where do I want to go, and where do I want to start this apprenticeship, and is this a company that's going to propel me to be the best electrician I can be, and are they going to give me the resources and opportunities to do that? So that's always something to think about too. I like it where I work because everybody knows me by name, and I know everybody by name. I'm not a number on a paper. So that's important as well to me. So
Well, great. Why don't you prepared some slides for young people to help them understand. So go ahead,
yeah.
because we'd love to hear kind of what, like you say, you've done a great job sharing some of the tasks already. As you're sharing some of your slides, be sure to tell us, what you really like. You've already shared about all the cool places you get to see, and I love that. But any just other stories to help us kind of paint the picture of what your typical day is like, if there is one.
Yeah, and see, that is another thing that I love, is that they're not, I don't even know you can say there's a typical day. It goes through phases, but let's say I'll go through some of my slides and I'll kind of supplement that. I guess, yeah, the first thing I'll say is like, again, especially with like if you consider a new building, okay, a new building on like imagine an open parcel of land, an empty field, and soon there's going to be a building there. Well, first you start with the foundations, and then once the foundations are in, now as an electrician or a plumber, you can do underground conduit running, which is like PVC. The white stuff is what plumbers use. Electricians will use gray PVC, but that actually gets buried into the ground, and then it's actually much more cost effective than running it what we would call overhead over your head, because you have a little more freedom of where to go underground. You can really go as the crow flies. From if you're talking about like a panel board like you would see in your house to receptacle or a plug or a light switch, you can go from A to B in a straight shot, as opposed to overhead. You might have to contend with walls and structural elements of the building. So they, for a couple of weeks you're doing underground. Then if it's a brick and mortar building with masonry blocks, then you spend weeks or months putting stuff into the walls. As the masons set the blocks, they cut out holes for you to put your components in, and then so you do that for a little bit, and then once the walls are up, okay, now we got to connect all these little things we just put in the wall, and we have to get our big panels. If there's a generator, we have to incorporate the generator. Is there security or data or fire alarm is a big one as well. So just, I mean, you might go through a couple weeks doing the same thing, and in a couple months you might be doing that same, but it's always fluid, and you're always kind of looking ahead and kind of doing, you know, different things, for smaller periods of time, where it just doesn't get boring to me, I guess, because it's not monotonous at all. It's very dynamic and fluid how construction works. But
You're
yeah,
selling me
so
on it. You're selling me on it, Matt. I'm wishing I could go back. So
oh, hey, I was told I should have been a salesman at times before too, but I won't go that route. So are you guys all able to see my
yes.
screen at this point? Okay, so I'll just kind of go through this. I think I started with a couple definitions. So I guess, yeah, I wanted to talk about the electrical certification tiers, and so I got some definitions here. So an apprentice electrician is an individual other than an electrical contractor, master electrician, or an electrical journeyman who is engaged in learning about and assisting in the installation or alteration of electrical wiring and equipment under the direct personal supervision of an electrical journeyman or master electrician. So that's the key there. Apprentice is actually a pretty old word that goes back way, way in time. I mean, it's not used, it's really only used in conjunction with the skilled trades, I would say, at this point in time, or maybe in a few other applications. But it used to be everybody was an apprentice blacksmith or an apprentice shoemaker or whatever. You're learning from the master, who is probably quite a bit older than you and hoping to retire someday, or in medieval times, I mean, die. So somebody's got to take someone's got to take up that mantle. So that is where that apprentice word comes from. And yeah, that, I mean, that's what it is. You are under the supervision. Like in the state of Michigan, you must register as an apprentice, and you must be registered under a master electrician for your hours that you work to contribute to your qualification for the journeyman exam, which I'll get into that in this next slide here. So then you have a journeyman electrician, who is an individual other than an electrical contractor, who, as his or her principal occupation, is engaged in the practical installation or alteration of electrical wiring. An electrical contractor or master electrician may also be an electrical journeyman. So here, when you get to that word journeyman, again, we're in the state of Michigan, so I'll talk about the state of Michigan. The apprenticeship lasts 4 years at minimum. And so the requirement in the state of Michigan is that you log 8,000 hours in no less than 4 years. So that is considering, 50 weeks, assuming, 2 weeks of vacation and stuff. 50 weeks at 40 hours a week is going to get you 2,000 hours a year. So to get those 8,000 hours, you have to do it in a minimum of 4 years, because, before that, people would get 8,000 hours in 2 years because their boss would write, fraudulent overtime that they worked. And so overtime doesn't count, towards your apprenticeship. So the fastest you can get there is 4 years, and at 8,000 hours. And then there's a couple age requirements and things like that. As long as you're registered as an apprentice with the state of Michigan and working under a licensed master electrician, every hour you work, it contributes to that qualification goal. And then once you hit that 8,000 hours, then you can submit an application to the state of Michigan. And as long as you're within their requirements, they will approve you to take what's called the journeyman electrical exam, which that is going to be an exam based on, electrical theory and the National Electric Code, which is what I'll talk about in a second. The National Electric Code is a document that is set forth by the NFPA, which is called the National Fire Protection Association. As you can guess, their main goal is to keep buildings from burning. So they have life safety codes, they have fire extinguisher codes. I mean, if you look up the NFPA, they have codes for everything that could possibly be related to fire prevention or suppression. And so electricity, obviously, one of the biggest dangers is dangers of fire, because electricity can create sparks, or what we would call arcs, and those are very hot and can create, a combustible situation where something were to start on fire. So you've heard of electrical fires. This is nothing new. So the NEC is designed and written and modified every 3 years to, I wouldn't say it's not an instruction manual. It doesn't tell you how to do your job. It tells you what needs to be true about the work you're doing when you are done. So in order to be a licensed electrician, you need to understand that book, and you need to be able to navigate it. It's not about memorization, it's about navigation, because the exam is open book. You're allowed to bring the code book with you. You're even allowed to have tabs on it for each different section. There's 840 articles in that book covering a wide variety of different installations. So that's kind of, and I'll get to more of that in a second, but I'll keep going through my slides here. And then a master electrician is an individual who has the necessary qualification, training, experience, and technical knowledge to supervise the installation of electrical wiring and equipment in accordance with the standard rules and regulations governing that work. So a master electrician, so after you've passed that journeyman's exam, then if you work for 2 more years, so accumulate another 4,000 hours for a total in your career of 12,000 hours, and you hold that journeyman's license for 2 years, now you're eligible to take another exam on the same book, the NEC, but it is the master electrician electrical exam, which is, it's significantly harder than the journeyman's. I mean, you're going from a journeyman who is perfectly qualified, is good to do the job, but a master is typically, like, the owner of my company is a master electrician, and you need to have a master electrician in order to be an electrical contractor, which is what we are. Somebody has to hold that license and be responsible for all the installations, and that person does need to be a master electrician.
Did you do it consecutively? Did you like keep going, or did you take some time before you went
Yes.
for your master's?
No. I was here was my thought is, again, I'm what, so I was 22, 20, 21, 22 when I got my journeyman's, and I was like, okay, I do plan on getting married. Success. And my anniversary is today. Thank you. And I do plan on having children. Well, my wife and my child are my world, and I can tell you right now, if I had waited, I don't have a whole lot of time to study. My daughter just turned 1, and she is a handful. I love her to death. But in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get this journeyman's license as fast as I can, and then I'm going to go get my master's. Not only, mainly for myself, just because I wanted to be able to say, hey, I put in all this work into this career, and I want to have something to show for it, and I want to have the highest certification possible. But also for my own, personal advancement within my company. I'm like, well, the only way to set myself apart is to achieve higher goals than everybody else. And I work alongside some phenomenal electricians who are, apprentices and journeymen and masters. And it's not about competition with anybody else, but at the same time, you do have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, what do I want out of this career, and where do I want my ceiling to be? And I want my ceiling to be, you can't see it, my hand's up here. So, that was my thought, is like, let me just crank this out now and get it over with and be done, and that'll be great. So
It's probably pretty rare, though. I would imagine that someone in their young
yeah,
20s would have that.
I looked it up. I think I don't know if I am anymore, but I definitely was the youngest master electrician in Michigan for a period of time. I'd have to look now. I think I looked up the average age, and for a master electrician, and I want to say it was somewhere between like 47 and 51. So I was like, okay, yeah, I think I'm doing good. I'm gonna roll with that. So yeah, I was pretty proud of that at the time. And then then you have I'm just going through my tiers here. Electrical contractor is not higher than master. It's just a different license, and it's a person engaged in the business of erecting, installing, altering, repairing, servicing, or maintaining electrical wiring. So that exam is more about construction law and that kind of stuff. So I won't spend too much time on that, but that is another license available, and that's what you would need. You would need a master's electrician license and a electrical contractor license to start electrical contracting business in the state of Michigan. So those are that. And then the barriers of entry in this are very low. So, I mean, an electrical apprentice, you just have to be employed and supervised by a master electrician and registered with the state of Michigan. That's it. You have to be 18. You can start working in a shop part-time. We have high school students who work in our shop part-time. Their hours that they work part-time still contribute to their eventual, licensing exam requirements. So even though they're working in the shop, sweeping floors, cleaning trucks, I mean, it still counts because you're working for an electrical contractor under a master electrician. So just so you know.
Yeah, I do want to ask a question though. We have about 6 minutes left. I'm wondering what kind of personal qualities do you think make a good electrician?
Yeah,
Because I'm definitely going to give them resources to do some of this, this code stuff and learn more about that. But from you, when you've worked with all these apprentices now as the training manager, what are you looking for? Help us understand so people can do some self-assessment.
I'm looking for go-getters. Okay, so our schooling and I'll pull up the slide. So the books you see there, that is what I mean. A couple of the books that we expect apprentices to complete throughout their apprenticeship incrementally. So by the time we have I think 8 books or 8 classes I should say for 4 years. So we expect you to do a class every 6 months. And it is self-paced because everybody joins and starts at different times. So it's not like a normal school where everybody's in the same grade moving on at the same time. So it is self-paced. And I look at the guys who are at or ahead there where they're supposed to be and completing that schooling diligently because it's going to help you come exam time. It's not just about passing the exam, it's about being a well-rounded electrician. But I look at those guys and I'm like, those are the guys that I'm looking at as future leaders and as excellent electricians when they get to that licensing point. So that's what I'm looking for.
Go getter, somebody who's going above and beyond, good attitude,
absolutely,
showing up on time.
You hear the phrase, yes, showing up on time is critical. And a good attitude and willing to learn, being coachable. I mean, you hear it say act your wage, and I don't like that because the way it works for me and the way I've experienced it is you go above and beyond and maybe act and work in a way that's above your pay rate right now, but the pay always follows. You know what I mean? So some guys, think that they deserve the world all in a second, and it doesn't happen like that. The work comes before the pay. So once you demonstrate that you can work at a certain level for a period of time, the pay follows, and then so on, and that kind of keeps repeating itself until you're at a place where you're comfortable or whatever have you, and however your career unfolds.
What would you want girls that are watching this today to think about the trades? Because they don't see as many female in the skilled trades. So what would you want them to know? Encourage them?
I would want to encourage you. I was just telling Krista, we just hired a part-time young lady who is a senior in high school. She wants to begin her apprenticeship as soon as she graduates. So she's working in our shop right now. And that actually is beneficial to her or anybody who works in a shop part-time before, because you get exposed to some of our building materials and components and equipment and stuff. Whereas, somebody who just walks in and goes straight to a job site, someone will say, hey, go get me 500 feet of 1/2 inch EMT. Huh? Yeah, you know what I mean? So they get to look at some of these things and see behind the scenes and see how, material gets delivered to job sites and collect material and get a feel for this stuff before they're even working in the field. So that'll give her a leg up, and she's doing a phenomenal job so far. And I would say, the trades are very open to young women who are watching this. And if you don't believe me, go on TikTok or Instagram. I've seen a huge, increase in women being electricians and doing taking little videos of them throughout their day. So it's perfectly available to anybody.
Yeah, statistically it's still pretty low, but I love that it's changing, like you say, and
Yes.
more women that share those videos, the better.
Yes.
Time always goes so fast, and
it does. That was quick.
I know it's like 2 minutes to 4 already.
I know. I don't even think there's some of those stuff like
just click through those because I want you to finish.
Those are ladders and scissor lifts and boom lifts. So those are things we use to get up to high places like ceilings. So that was going to be a picture. So most people would call that an outlet or a plug. That is not. It's called a receptacle. So that, I mean, you can look those up and you can look at kind of how those are made and designed and wired. And then, this is a blueprint. If we got to that, I was going to show you that. But this is a blueprint of a school we worked on. So all those little squares with the circles in them with the lines between them are lights. And that's a blueprint that tells us how to do our job, how to do the installation. Again, this is a legend on the front of a blueprint that gives you a bunch of different symbols and what they mean, because you can't put all these words on the blueprints or you wouldn't be able to read anything.
And
And
honestly,
there's
actually, I'm going to cut you off because I want to, and these are great pictures. I love that you shared them. But I want in this last minute to really share your final word of wisdom because we're so inspired just to hear your story and to hear what a go-getter you are. But I know there's going to be young people wondering if this is for them. And so I just want you to share that out before I have to let you on your anniversary dinner. So
Absolutely. So what I would say is trust your gut. Like my gut is what told me to move to Colorado. My gut is what told me, hey, this could be a great career for you. It aligns with who I am as a person, how I operate, and you know, you get a gut feeling for a reason. I mean, that's your body and your brain telling you something that you know what I mean, that your subconscious and that your brain wants you to understand. So trust yourself, trust your judgment. You guys are all, I'm sure, very bright kids with bright futures ahead of you. So trust yourself. You are very smart. You know what I mean. It'll work out for you. But just be true to yourself and do what you think is going to serve you best.
thank you so much, Matt, for being here today. It's been great learning about, and you're going to get lots of love into the chat. But I'm going to let stop some recording. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thank you guys for listening, and good luck out there. Yeah, and like I said, Excel Electric. So if you're interested in an apprenticeship, you can always fill out an application. So and we'll get back to you. How's that sound?